Well, luckily, not that I know of, no one's trying to shoot at you. um, yeah, the air ambulance is very. When I left the forces, unfortunately, the air ambulance job that I wanted didn't exist, because at the time it was very much sort of dead man's shoes, and people once they're in, they stay and they don't move on. So I joined Devon and Cornwall Police as one of their pilots for a little bit, knowing that that's co-located with the air ambulance at the time, and then managed to, after a couple of years, one of the guys retired, and then I passed all the interviews and stuff and got the job with Devon Air Ambulance. Since joining, then part of the reason why I was recruited in also was because of the passion for the job, but also my nighttime experience. Because at the time, air ambulances weren't flying at night. The kind of CAA perceived it to be too dangerous. What they now realise is the level of experience from the ex-military is huge and far greater than whatever they can sort of imagine. So we managed to persuade them, and we got the various measures in place for that flying at night isn't particularly more dangerous than it is in the daytime. And we've come around in Devon. We're doing the community landing site, football pitches equivalent type of places dotted around the place. We will in time progress forward, but they needed some experienced night flying team people, pilots, which was me, one of them. So we came up with a plan and an idea of how to go into these sites and activate a light, which has proved really, really well. We're just up to 200, I think, community landing sites in Devon alone. There's another sort of 50 in the pipeline, and we will keep those going, and I think quite soon we'll start to go into community landing sites that haven't got a light. And then in another year or so's time, we'll start to be able to land. If it's like a job on the North Devon Link Road, we'll find a big site that's flat and good access that we'll be able to go into. But at the time, Devon Air Ambulance had 3 pilots that had no or hardly any night flying at all, and 2 of us had a lot. So we kind of needed to get the experience level up, which we have now.
And I think you're the only pilot to have landed on our community site at night.
I believe so. It's a bit like an insurance policy, I suppose. If you've got it, hopefully you won't ever need it. Yeah. But yes, we not long after it went live, I think it was, we had a job, I believe it was in South Moulton, and this was the closest community landing site, so popped into here. It wasn't particularly the nicest of evenings, if I remember rightly. But what was quite weird and ironic is we had booked in my wife and my son to have a Sunday lunch a couple of weeks later. So we'd spoken to the owners of the Grey, or my wife had, and having heard rumblings and rumours of, my mum had always said, well, you've got to go into the Grey because there was someone who was serving in the army with you. And I just said, yeah, whatever. There's like 100,000 people in the army. Surely it's not. But he was called Rob, and he was in Blues and Rob. Maybe not, and transpires it was. But anyway, when the job in hand, they were met by a police car, the paramedics, off they went. So sometimes I'm twiddling my thumbs for an hour or so, but so was the little figure in the corner, and that was Rob. So I went in for a coffee, not anything stronger.
While you were waiting.
While we were waiting, yeah. As it actually transpires, the job wasn't quite as bad as we thought, thankfully. So the paramedics managed to sort of patch the patient up enough to hand over to the road crew, who then took them, I think it was up to North Devon Hospital.
So that was weird to see Rob after so long.
Yeah, such a long time. And yeah, it was really good to catch up. And then subsequently been a few times for a very nice Sunday lunch. And there's a nice little, he's got his SD cap, so his headdress he used to wear, and there's little sort of signs of his old days, his former days. And it's really lovely to see that. I think the Blues and Roars and the Lifeguards of Thesby were 2 such close-knit family regiments. I certainly didn't get with the Army Air Corps that it's so nice to see people doing well once they've left. And not necessarily, because you haven't got that many transferable skills when you do leave the Army. Yeah, pilots you have, but not within the cavalry. There's not that many. There's the riding instructor one, maybe the farriers, but there's not that many. So it's really nice to see, and especially watching the Queen's service and things, and getting in touch with a few other people over the last sort of couple of years, it's just like, wow, you've done really well, and just random walks of life that people have ended up doing.
So why, when you came out of the army, why didn't you just settle for the job with the police? Why were you so keen to get into the ambulance?
The police, everyone's trying to run away and hide. It was fun because the police aircraft's got a very good camera. It's got a night sun torch that sort of links and shines things, and they've got communications, and they've got their tools. But the Mark 1 eyeball is the way ahead, and it was very satisfying going. They're looking on the camera over there, and I'm like, sheep have moved over there. Looking on the camera over there, like in the corner of the field over there. Yeah, and I went, just put the camera in the corner of the field over there where the sheep have bunched, and they're like, oh look, there they are. That was really satisfying. They got all this technology, yet it was often the pilot that would spot them. Drones have really taken over, and drones are doing a really good job, and especially now they've got a good thermal camera. I was on an ambulance job a couple of weeks ago in Torbay, a lady had fallen off a cliff, and we landed on top of the cliff. The doctor, she'd gone down via a police car to a lifeboat, to a little lifeboat, to then clamber up, which it was a long old way, and we're waiting for a Coast Guard helicopter. But this back of this van was this huge telly, and there was this amazing image of what's going on. I was like, well, where's the... It's not a helicopter, no, it's a drone. You could just see, couldn't hear it, and the drone footage is phenomenal. And helicopters are expensive, so I could see it not being the best job to continue for the rest of my flying times. So it was very much, okay, I definitely, this is just waiting out until the air